welcome. Thank you for joining us for our latest Ask the Expert session. I'm Laura.Gilsdorf, Realtor with Madison and Company, based out of Evergreen, Colorado, and with me is LeAnne.
lmerciez with Universal Lending, based in Denver, but cover all of Colorado.
Awesome. So today we wanted to dive into what it takes when you are prepping your home for sale, both from a realtor perspective and your actual home, and then what you might need to know on the financial side. So LeAnne, why don't you kick us off with letting us know, because I think oftentimes when sellers are prepping, they think of the obvious things like, what do I have to do for my home and make it sell and, desirable and everything else, but they don't often think of what might be happening on the financial end. So what do you think there is for them to keep top of mind?
For the financial part, the biggest thing I think is just finding out if you can qualify for a mortgage prior to selling your home, or if you have to have your home sold prior to qualifying. And there's a few things that we can do. So I think it's important to talk to a mortgage professional to make sure that how we have your loan set up is the best way to make an offer. It also is the best way for you to securely list your house. We want to make sure the effort that you're putting into listing your house that you can qualify after. And the biggest thing that I get, and you can probably speak to this as well, is it's really hard when you have to list your house and then find a new house and purchase a new house all within kind of the same time frame.
Yeah, it definitely is. And there's so many facets to the situations of, are you moving in town, out of state, even? Like, what are the dynamics of your situation? And I, as a realtor, get the most resistance whenever I do suggest that sellers reach out to a lender because they think, oh, I'm not ready for that yet. But it is probably the first thing you need to do even before engaging with a realtor, from my perspective, just because if you can't afford it or the numbers aren't looking the way that you want them to look, then if it's not a need to move situation, then that's going to help you steer and guide to what is going to be the best outcome for you and whatever it is you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's also that timing part's pretty scary. So if we can qualify you with both mortgages, maybe you just make a small down payment because the majority of your proceeds are coming from the sale. So you're able to buy your house first. And then when you sell your house, we do a recast. So we take that money and we recast it over that full 30 years to bring down your payment. We can do things like bridge loans. We can use, if you're going to be able to pay your down payment back quickly, we can do things like using your IRA. So there's a lot of different things that we can do if your big worry is that timing piece of selling your home and then being able to buy a home within that certain time period without being homeless.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that realtors and lenders partner on often for buyers and sellers, is really strategizing, okay, what's happening in the market? What do we need to be prepared for? What actions do we need to take? And then creating different pathways of possibilities of, if it's this, then this, if it's this, then this, so on and so forth. And it's really useful to have knowledgeable people by your side so that you don't even have to think of those things. We get to think of those things for you. So anything else on the financial end that you think is worth pointing out?
No, I think the biggest part is just talking to a mortgage professional just to make sure that it's set up correctly, that you're listing your house is equally as important as purchasing your house. And there's different ways we can structure a loan to make sure it's not so stressful when you start that looking process and that selling process.
For sure. And I would also say, I mean, I might be going a little off the cuff here, but especially with today's interest rates, it's also worth looking at when you're a seller, because some sellers' loans are assumable, correct? So they could pass those loans on to a potential buyer, which could make their listing more desirable too.
Yeah, absolutely. Some VAs and some FHAs are assumable.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Well, then from the real estate perspective, the things that you want to know, they're somewhat obvious, to the general homeowner. And if you've ever gone out and bought a home, you've known the vast differences in what you see between all the listings, from the ones that are meticulously staged to the ones that seem like they were just sort of thrown together. But there's just some general things that you can start doing, even if you're just engaging with the thought of selling your home. The easiest one, number one, is decluttering and cleaning. Why it's easy is because it's a letting go process with your home. And so even if you're not sure if you're selling, or you're just contemplating it, or you're definitely sure you're selling, no matter where you're at in the perspective, it allows you to start the letting go process, where you see, what do I really need? What do I not need? What is the next step in my life that I'm creating? And decluttering is one of the best things that you can do for someone who's going to be coming and looking at your home, because it just makes it feel more open, more spacious, less personalized, so that when a buyer is walking through it, they can see themselves in the home. So I'd say step one is decluttering. Step two, I would almost put this side by side with step one, is making repairs. So if there's major repairs, obviously you want to tend to those, but I would even have you look at the smaller things, like walk around your house. How do my baseboards look? How does the paint look? Are there paint chips places? Are there holes in the wall that I need to tend to from old pictures hanging up? Or the things generally look clean and put together. And little by little, just write a list of what you're seeing and what projects you think are there, and just start, taking them off one by one. The other thing you could do is improve, or at least observe and be aware of your curb appeal. When you're doing this, I always recommend, and will sometimes take my clients to walk their neighborhood and just see, how does your home stack up to your neighbors? Is it on par? Is it better? Is it worse? You definitely don't want to be in the worst category. So if you're walking around and you're feeling like, oh man, my house just isn't looking as good as the rest, you're going to take a ding on the value. So that might be somewhere to put some investment into your time and preparation. Another one is just kind of neutralizing your decor. So as you're going through that decluttering process, taking family photos down, or anything that's like super personal that is going to give someone a reason to place any kind of judgment or perception on who you are as a seller. I always kind of get a little weary of saying that, but it is true. We're all human and we have perceptions and judgments and stereotypes. And so when you're prepping your house for sale, I like to make it as blank as possible, which can be one of the hardest things for sellers, because we love our homes, right? And it is hard to let go no matter what the circumstances. But remembering that it is, a letting go process regardless, can make it a little bit easier. And then the last thing above and beyond that, especially if you're going through all of those processes, is consider staging your home. Not every home needs it, but some homes really do, and they sell much quicker and at a higher value, sometimes up to 5% higher if you stage it correctly. So it can be a minimal investment for a maximum outcome. But
what do you think of staging?
Of what? Staging?
Of virtual staging.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I personally don't love it. Maybe I'll come around to it, but for me, if I'm seeing something in the photo, I can tell it's either virtually staged or not. And photos are so difficult as it is, because, one of the things I always tell my clients is, even if the photos look bad or if they look good, if there's something that interests you in the house, just go see it, because they will always surprise you on both ends of the spectrum. So virtual staging is just, to me, adding another layer of complexity that's kind of muddying up the process, because when they go there, they're just going to see a vacant house versus what it could actually look like, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I can see certain circumstances where it might be worthwhile, but overall, if you're going to stage, I would say just spring the extra few dollars to do the real staging, because that's going to get your biggest impact when they actually walk into the house. What do you think of
Yeah.
virtual staging, Anne?
You know, I'm looking at houses in Texas, and the ones that are virtually staged, my eye tends to go to them naturally because they look really nice, but a lot of the pictures after will show what the house looks like just blank, and
Okay.
it's complete, and it leads me not to actually like the house. So
Yeah,
that's
isn't
why
that interesting?
I feel like I'm being totally deceived, because I mean, I feel like even when they virtually stage it, they can add colors and stuff to the walls or whatever. And
Yeah. You can do a lot of different things these days with photos and AI and everything else. I mean,
yeah,
the most I will do for my clients is, let's say you've got an office that you're photographing and there's just cords everywhere. For the photos, I might edit out the cords and the clutter, but it's still the same room, the same space, the same furniture, everything when they walk in. It just makes the photo pop a little bit more to not have that extra cord clutter. But otherwise, I like to be as true as possible to what exists. And if you can't replicate that in real life, then I feel like you're doing the buyer and the seller a disservice versus, the alternative. So that's
yeah.
my stance.
So you walk in and be like completely disappointed.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I think that's probably all we've got for you today on prepping for your home sale. If you're thinking about selling, or if it's ever crossed your mind what's possible for your situation, especially in today's market, please reach out to either one of us. We'd be more than happy to have that conversation with you and help you see what you can do. Otherwise, if you want to stay on top of what is happening in the market, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Make sure your notifications are on and you'll get the updates every time we post.